Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to MySec Southfield. For those who are in the stream, pardon the noise. We have some people that are filing in, still cashing out from the bar. It's been a great evening so far, so hopefully things still go according to plan. So welcome to MySec Southfield. My name is Brett Hansen. I am the Southfield coordinator, if you don't know that already. We have other MySec chapters as well, so if you're not in the Southfield area, or if you're in Jackson, they meet the second Tuesday of the month, or if you're in Lansing, they meet the second Wednesday. And then if you're in Grand Rapids, they also meet the second Thursday, just like we do, so their meeting is at the same time. Also, there's a lot of other security organizations that if you're interested, you can get involved with. If you would like to get some information, just let me know. We have ISC Squared, and they meet the fourth Tuesday of the month. North Oakland ISSA, the second Wednesday. Please pass your thanks to the staff that have provided this room and the great service that you have seen. And thanks to Tech Systems for providing food and snacks. I don't see them here yet, but they should be here shortly. So if you don't already know, Tech Systems offers snacks throughout the meeting. Please eat them. We don't want them to go to waste. So be part of MySec. If you have a topic for a talk, let me know what you would like to see. Oh, speak of, here's the food. Thank you very much. About the talk and maybe go into a little bit more detail. If you have handouts that you are willing to share publicly, we can throw that up on the website and have a link to your talk and get the word out there and let people know how great the organization is. So announcements, MySec Social is to be determined. Might have to ask this at the end of the meeting when everybody's here. So at one of the leadership calls, there was feedback that we should probably focus on having a social at a single location, same time, so people don't have to ask questions where it's at and when it is. So I'm looking for suggestions on locations. You know, we've been to One Eye Betty's, we've been to Royal Oak Brewery, we've also been to Jolly Pumpkin. For those who like a particular place, we're going to set up a survey on the Slack channel and find a place and kind of go there and keep it consistent for a while. So by a show of hands, who likes that idea? All right, so that's not like sold, so we just have to figure out where that place is going to be.
Where is easiest for you? Just want a regular place every week?
Every month.
Every month, I'm sorry.
So it's consistent. All right. Let's see. If you have other locations that maybe we haven't visited that you think is fantastic in the Royal Oak Southfield area, just give me a PM on Slack and we'll add it to the list and add it to the poll and find out where people enjoy to go. Okay, Converge Detroit is only 125 days away. So believe it or not, people were making fun of me when that number was much larger, but that's only a few months, well, a little bit more than a few months. So it's May 16th and 17th. Early bird tickets are still on sale. They're only $100 until February 28th. If you want to know the URL, it's convergeconference.org. And CFP is now open, or call for papers. So if you're looking to give a talk, go ahead and submit it, and let's see you there. And if you want to submit a talk and you want to practice first, let me know so we can get you on the schedule. North Oakland ISSA is also looking for speakers for the 2019 edition of DCON Security Conference. So I think last year was the very first year. They're putting it on again.
Fourth year.
Oh, fourth year.
Yeah.
Oh, I only heard about it last year.
This is fourth year.
Okay, so fourth year for the DCON. Their CFP is open, and the conference is Thursday, April 11th and Friday, April 12th. So if you're interested, I have an email I can pass to you if you're looking for information on how to post for papers there. So are there any job postings anybody would like to share? And in case I mentioned earlier, Tech Systems help provide the food. If you are looking for a job as well, you can reach out to Tech Systems. And just there's also the jobs channel within Slack, which is actually very active. So if you're looking for a job or you're looking to post for a job, jump on Slack and you can get a lot of information. Any other announcements? Quiet bunch today. All right. So without further ado, we have our presenter, J.T. Revner, presenting on threat modeling.
How's everyone doing tonight? Good. This is this presentation requires some amount of participation. If I sit up here and just go through my slide deck real quick, it's going to be a real short talk. So we're going to need some participation to make this go. And at the end of it, we're going to have a hands-on activity, which I'll explain when we get to it. So for our agenda, we have why me, why is this important to me, why is threat modeling important to me, the definition of threat modeling, some things that we think about or we don't think about that we threat model in everyday life. I steps for threat modeling per Microsoft's for software development specifically, but it can be applied in any industry. Some of the basics of it, terms, and then our activities. So, who am I? JT Revner, software developer, outdoorsman, and cypherpunk. So the first two are pretty self-explanatory. Cypherpunk is someone who advocates for the strong use of encryption for social and political change. Somewhat of a political activist, and I do security training for activists, teaching them how to use secure communications and encrypted communications like Signal, GPG, and the like. Same thing with software development and doing my outdoors stuff is threat modeling is important to both of those. As a software developer, you're always trying to protect assets, you're trying to protect your code, you're trying to protect databases, your applications, and when you're out camping, you're out hiking, the same thing. Threat modeling is important to like what risks you face when you're outdoors. You know, what happens if you break an arm when you're out backpacking. You know, you have to consider those kind of things when you're going through. So, first is a definition from Wikipedia. Threat modeling is a process by which potential threats, such as structural vulnerabilities, can be identified, enumerated, and prioritized, all from a hypothetical attacker's point of view. The purpose of threat modeling is to provide defenders with a systematic analysis of the probable attacker's profile, the most likely attack vectors, the assets most desired by an attacker. So what this means is when you're doing threat modeling, what you really need to do is you need to think like the attacker. Anyone that's familiar with red teaming, pen testing, application security already is thinking like this. You need to be thinking like an attacker, like a hacker, in order to find the threats before they do. So we do threat modeling in everyday life, even when we're not thinking about it. So some examples: when you're driving a car somewhere, decide where to park it. Recently, I went to Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert at Little Caesars. We had to decide, are we going to park and spend $40 and park in a secure garage, or are we going to park on the street, right? That was doing threat modeling. We decided to park on the street, where it's slightly more dangerous and more likely that our car is going to get broken into while we're at the concert. But that was a risk that we decided to take because it was not worth the $40 to park. And we do this kind of stuff all the time. You know, choosing locks to security systems. We're thinking about, you know, where threats are going to be coming from, whether we're looking for night vision or not, you know, motion sensor or not. As we saw in our talk last week on IoT devices are very insecure, and as such, is your security system going to be cloud connected? That's that adds an additional threat vector for, you know, hackers to look at what your security camera looks like, be able to turn on and off your lights and such. Deciding on a route to walk or bike somewhere, the same thing. Probably in Metro Detroit, that's less of a concern because we drive everywhere. But when you're in other places, are you walking? Are you going to take the shortcut through the back alley or not? You know, what is the risk associated with that? Do you know the environment that you're in and such? Can we think of other examples of when we do threat modeling in everyday life?
Well, even forget walking, driving in this area. Well, which area are you going to avoid versus, you know, where you feel confident to get off the highway and take the surface streets to go to the next one, right?
Yeah. Further stream, he said also with driving in this area and where we're getting off on exits and such. Other examples?
Same with similar vein, gas stations.
Yeah, what you do at a gas station, where are you pulling off? I know driving to Chicago, sometimes if you pull off in Indiana, right there before Chicago, that can be a suspect place to be getting gas.
Stopping and getting food at a place that has bulletproof glass.
Yeah. They've done threat modeling, right? And they, when you're getting your pizza through a bulletproof glass, you know that they, you know, have a high crime index in that area, and they've, you know, taken their appropriate countermeasures for their threat model.
Eating at restaurants that a friend of yours got sick at, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one I hadn't thought of before, but yeah, restaurants you sit at. Another thing for restaurants, I'm one of those people that always likes to sit so I can see the door and see who's coming in and out of the door in case, in the extremely unlikely event that something was to happen, I know where the exits are and such things like that.
The girl you bring home from the bar.
My name is too late.
When you invest in stocks.
Oh, yep, investing in stocks.
Yeah, I know. Like, at first I didn't know as good because I did it blind, but now I know you gotta go in and look at like the company's history itself and their debt and their income. Do a lot of modeling, predicting what they've done in the past.
Yeah, what are their fundamentals? You know, all that.
Yeah, just guess whether your investment's good or not based on your own observations.
Yep, it's all about risk assessment.
Whenever you see a cop, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. What I understood by threat modeling pretty much is like, as example, bringing it from the bar or anything else. There's a simple formula I think that is being used for risk assessment in IT, especially. It's like threats multiplied by vulnerabilities multiplied by consequences.
Yeah.
So pretty much, you know, you in any scenario, you pretty much multiply these three together and see what is the effect of it. So threats, vulnerabilities, and consequences.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the talk too. Yeah. Brett, you said something about cops?
Cops, yeah. Every time
Yeah.
I say cop, I do a threat model.
Yeah.
Speeding, you know,
Yeah.
what I have in the car.
Yep.
Kilo, did I drop it off already?
The cops throw out of you.
When you make a purchase that your wife won't approve and you get home, you have to threat model to gauge her, her intensity level before you can present her with the facts.
Do you need a model for that?
I need anything for that.
All right, so here's the here's steps for software development. Threat modeling is defined on Microsoft's site. Microsoft has a tool for threat modeling specifically. I do not have a Windows machine, so I cannot show that tool to you as I'm on a Mac. But so first we're going to define the security requirements for the system, the application, the whatever asset is we're protecting. We're going to create an application diagram so we can see how all the inner working parts work together. I know everybody loves Visio and building diagrams in Visio, which I've had to do for class recently. I've been real excited about that. Identifying the threats. Where are the threats to your system, to your application, and then we need to mitigate those threats by, for instance, in software, maybe you add input validation to make sure that you're protecting against SQL injection. And then finally, we're going to validate those threats have been mitigated, and that can be done with application security testing, pen testing, and the like. You know, more red teaming. Make sure the good guys are finding the problems before the bad guys are.
Are you planning on expanding on diagramming?
I was not, no.
Okay. What are you diagramming? Are you diagramming the entry points? You diagramming more the network attack surface?
So it depends on really what you're diagramming. It's really broad. So like in a so for like software development, I would diagram entry point. I would diagram the whole user experience and every path that a user can take through an application, and where are the threats that could be found if the user is an attacker. And then where are the database connections? Where is it calling out to APIs and things like that? And you want to diagram that every aspect of the application in that sense. All right, so threat modeling comes down to 5 questions. What do I want to protect? Who do I want to protect it from? How bad are the consequences if I fail? How likely it is that it will need to protect the assets? And how much trouble am I willing to go through to prevent those potential consequences? So terms, we have assets, which is what you're protecting. Your adversaries are who you're protecting your assets from. Your threats are what are the consequences, what happens if those adversaries get access to those assets. The capabilities are what your adversaries are capable of, what can they bring to bear. And then your risk is your appetite for risk. That's the likelihood that something's going to happen or not happen, and whether you're going to prepare for that possibility or not, depending on how likely it is. So for some examples, I'm going to ask for more. So for our industry, code, secrets, and API keys, personally identifiable information, physical location, server rooms, IT infrastructure, and intellectual property. Can we think of other assets? These are sort of obvious ones, but there's a lot more. Can we think of other assets that we would be protecting as InfoSec professionals?
Humans.
Yes, the people.
Yep. Probably the most important one.
Devices.
Yep.
Yeah, all code applications.
So adversaries, criminals, hacktivists, nation states, and insiders. I think often insiders are the most important ones to think of because even when someone is not intentionally being malicious on the inside, their actions or their lack of knowledge for insecurity lead to them being leads them to be the party that's going to end up being a problem for your organization. Whether that's phishing attacks, whaling if you're, yeah. Can we think of more adversaries?
Script kiddies.
Script kiddies?
Well, I was thinking users. I had a quick question before you asked if we could think of more. Was that at which point, because you mentioned the whaling, the fishing, things of that for the insiders, at which point do insiders switch from victims to adversaries? Because if they're the recipient of, say, a spear phishing email, I don't know if I would consider them an adversary, right? At that point, they're victims, even if they do divulge information, give information, give credentials, etc. Is it fair to think of that in that way? Like, do you have an idea of where it switches over to the adversary?
I would say if you could think of it more in terms of like account access. So their account becomes the adversary.
I see, so not the person.
So not necessarily the person themselves.
Okay.
Now obviously there are people who don't, even when they're the victim, they know something's up, or they're choosing to remain ignorant. I think that can happen more often than we want to believe, where they know something's wrong, but they're choosing not to because they feel they're going to get in more trouble by admitting some kind of wrongdoing. And I think at that point we can also call them an adversary. Yep.
I mean, so the standards are gonna be gross negligence or intent. What was the user's intent? Or were they, as you would say, really grossly negligent because they knew something was up and they just
Well, I think there's some people that don't know anything's up, and that's gross negligence, is they really don't understand what they're doing is wrong or what they're doing is a security concern.
they've been trained.
Well, we can assume they've been trained, but
Yeah.
let's not pretend like that's as ubiquitous as it should be.
Yeah, okay.
And then even if they're trained, it doesn't mean that the training is effective.
Right.
True. Right, that might just be a threat vector, right, at that point. They might not be an adversary in that instance if they're not aware that it's being done through them. They're just a conduit to it. But then there's like insiders who are actually attempting to do something that they can knowing that they're
I think they're still classified as an insider threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But majority they're called insider threat.
All right, so what are some of the threats? There's so many threats. You can't list them all. Downtime of your services, loss of revenue, bad PR, job loss, depending on your organization's culture and whether they put the blame on the security professionals for a cyber incident, and then legal cases for instance, privacy violations under EU law and such. Can we think of more threats? IP theft, sabotage.
I like the subtle when they inject the pilot data, mess with your data, so then now your decisioning engines that run off this data
Those
are
are-
making flawed decisions.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good one.
It's pretty fancy.
Even from the utility side, you can take down the whole electric thread.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure behind that.
So all the infrastructure behind our power grids, behind our phone networks, behind our water treatment, all of that.
Would that come under DOE, denial of service? Or
Sorry?
would that come under denial of service?
Yeah, that's in the next one. What are some of the things that I believe I have DDoS in the next slide?
What should be downtime?
Yeah.
They've told out risk to
third parties or first parties. Think of the air conditioning company who was the vector for allowing ag to target.
Yeah.
Could be loss of life if you're talking medical equipment or hospital networks.
Yeah, what happens when your pacemaker is ransomware? Pay us Bitcoin or we're going to turn off your pacemaker. Like that's real, that's now. That kind of thing is in the realm of possibilities. It's pretty scary stuff.
In my experience, job loss and downtime are the same thing.
Yep. Sorry?
In my experience, job loss and downtime are the same thing.
Are they?
CISO, he's the fall guy.
Yep.
Downtime.
Yeah, but even from like an e-commerce standpoint, like downtime
There's loss of revenue.
yeah.
Yep.
Physical and kinetic attacks like Stuxnet.
Yep. That's
affects hardware.
Hardware attacks.
Blowing stuff up.
So capabilities, again, this is a very broad, there's so many capabilities, adversaries depending on who you're attacking or who's attacking you. So, wiretapping if your threat model includes government entities. Social engineering is any of those threat actors that we originally talked about, are going to use social engineering in their attacks. It's very common. DDoS, advanced persistent threats, insider knowledge are all capabilities that we have. Can we think of more? There's so many.
I think foreign nations might come under APTs.
Yeah.
Custom malware, that sort of falls under APTs though, really.
Yeah. Yeah, custom malware for the stream. Account takeovers. Just all the different forms of malware that there are, worms, viruses.
You brought up earlier, if you can mess with the training data for a model that makes decisions, that would also help with this.
Yep. For the stream that was messing with training data for like machine learning and things like that.
Yeah. You always heard it referred to as adversarial machine learning, things like that.
Adversarial machine learning, that's not a term I'm familiar with, but thank you.
False flag, like falsifying attribution. You take over a company and make that company attack another company,
Yeah.
hide your or nation's data or whatever.
Yeah, when we see that, just even as easily as using VPNs into other countries to make it look like you're attacking from a different country is. And then I assume I'm not an InfoSec professional. I'm getting into InfoSec, hopefully into application security from a software development background. But I assume just an IP isn't enough for attribution. But there's little things about how attacks are done that make it look like different groups. Make it look like NSA's equation group or North Korea's groups, Russia, and trying to mimic that.
Behavioral fingerprinting.
Yeah.
You can run through Tor.
Yep.
To obfuscate.
Well, to me, account takeovers is social engineering.
Yeah, that's a big thing that social engineers can do, but
You can do it without social engineering somebody. They have crappy passwords. You just guess their password
Yeah,
and take over their account.
that's the majority of it.
Yeah.
But the two would definitely be linked and huge number of these.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that account takeover is mostly social engineering. You're going to social engineer the lower level person who received less training, is less scrupulous about it, grab their creds, pivot, escalate, and then take over the person whose inbox you can start sending emails from, appearing as that person, playing the middle person, so you're seeing both sides of the conversation. That's where I think you see your account takeover, whereas the social engineering would have been lower down in the tier.
I'd argue you're
I've
gonna
seen
go
both
to-
sides of it. Majority in 30 years has been social engineering.
So I think the majority of what I've seen has been just password replay, credential attacks.
Right.
Because you can do that from anywhere in the world. And then if you have two-factor, then that's a, not a wrinkle, but you can still potentially bypass that. If you we want to.
Yeah, ATO is a result of a social injury.
Right.
Right. It's not synonymous with it.
And finally, we come to risks. That's where you're looking at, threats versus risks, like how likely is something going to happen. If you look on your pages, on second page of your handouts, we can see the risks and threats for a jewelry store. Probably the best one is the low likelihood and low consequences in a rage bear destroys store door. More likely is an employee misplaces their key. Is that by itself probably is low consequence because the likelihood of someone finding that key and knowing what it's for and then using it is not very likely. But it's likely that it happens in the first place. So we're going to use something like this in our activity. We've got a blank one on page 4 for our activity. The next slide is for Brian.
As long as you're not going for the duration record, we're good.
No, I'm not. No, the talk is done. Now we're going into the activity, so this is not the duration record.
It'll be okay, baby, don't leave.
Here's the thing. I'm flattered, but really pissed.
I'm just proud.
All right, so for our group activity, each table is gonna either be the Batman or the Joker, and we're going to do Batman's threat model. So there needs to be at least one Joker, but does anyone want to be the Joker? Any table want to be the Joker?
We do.
Okay, you guys are the Joker. You guys can be the Joker too, if you want to be the Joker. Everyone else, you're going to be Batman, and we're going to go through on page 3.
The real question, who's Robin?
Robin's an asset.
Okay. Good point.
So take a few minutes with your groups, go through this, and we're going to...
Hold up, guys. Just got some directions.
No, the page on here is for Batman. The two tables that are Jokers, you can use that as an example, but obviously we're not talking about the Joker's assets. We're talking about Batman's assets and the like, and how you might go ahead and attack Batman.
What's the industry? What's the company?
Acme.
The jewelry center?
No. We're on page 3. The blank thing for assessing your risks.
Page that right there. Right.
Yeah. You're so you guys want to be the Joker, and you guys are attacking Batman. What are you guys going to go through? What are Batman's assets? How are you going to? What are the risks? What are your capabilities?
Right, but that's why I'm asking what the industry is.
Do you want to go around?
Yeah, I'll go.
For a little while, or do you need
Yeah, I'll let them go. No, it's a little bit shorter than I was expecting.
for a while,
And then we'll come back together as a group and talk about it. I got one more slide.
found out that my that wasn't just a robot. I'm a big fan of Ideology, religion.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. They're still working on the sheets. Got 2 thumbs up, I'm watching now, which would not be Three more minutes, just 3-4 minutes.
Depending on what iteration of Batman, probably going to be also perspective at the same time. I watch so.
One minute.
Alright, let's bring it back.
Who can whistle? I can't whistle.
Alright, guys. Time to wrap it up.
All right, so here's an example of Batman's threat model, a very simple one from Ars Technica. Didn't read the article, I just saw the thing and I put it in the slide.
The American way.
Who actually reads the articles? You just read the comments after and get angry. All right, so let's start with the Batman groups. What are some of the assets? Let's start there. What are we trying to protect as Batman?
Wayne Manor.
Wayne Manor.
Our identity.
Batcave.
Our identity.
I got that. Phones, boats, cars, and helicopters, all those kids.
All the vehicles, all his gadgets.
Big industries, because that's where the money comes from.
Yep, he's got to protect his revenue stream.
We put Alfred there. But yeah,
So you look at it as what he wants to protect? He wants to protect Gotham.
I was waiting like
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
You just sway everybody.
He doesn't give a shit about that. He's a millionaire. He would sue stuff.
I was something he valued, you know?
That's true.
That's the whole purpose.
That's why
I like it.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to protect.
So we had that a little bit different list here. You want to go over there?
Well, no, I mean, you kind of broke it down.
Yeah, his girlfriend was first, and then the commissioner.
What's his love interest name? We can't remember.
Batgirl. Which one?
Yeah, he's got a.
Kyle. Robin is the only.
Oh, you like the reporter? The reporter, what was her name?
No, she's not a reporter. She's assistant district attorney. Wasn't she assistant district attorney? At least in Georgia.
So who was Michelle Pfeiffer in that? That wasn't.
Catwoman. That was
Let's focus back in on the talk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's Rachel's last name?
All right, we got more assets.
We were grenaded that
You were going through a whole list of assets. Did you get through one?
No, that.
Gotham has a big list.
Does.
So obviously, Gotham City being one of them, next was the commissioner.
Commissioner
His
Gordon.
pseudonymity, what do we call it? Like anonymous?
Yeah, his identity.
Anonymity.
Yeah.
And then adversaries. The Joker, obvious one.
Penguin.
Freeze.
Penguin.
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
Catwoman.
Catwoman.
Riddler.
Riddler.
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
Aliens.
Aliens? So what about Gotham PD? They're
Yeah, I was gonna say.
they're an adversary. Many they don't.
Organized crime.
Organized crime had an issue with them.
Yep.
Now we forgot on assets.
Yeah.
Oh, Two-Face.
Two-Face.
Let's see, let me get from the side.
Motivations. What are their motivations?
Anarchy.
Anarchy.
Fun.
Money.
Money.
Psychosis.
Fun.
To kill Batman.
Psychosis.
Watch the world burn.
No,
Something.
Brett. Joker does not want to kill Batman.
He wants Batman to kill his.
Oh,
Batman to kill him.
that's correct.
Greed.
Carries forward.
What was that?
Batman Scholar.
Yeah.
That's modern.
Because sometimes killing someone's just a lot easier.
And what are their capabilities?
Ooh.
It's true.
Poison, mind control.
Explosives.
Poison, mind control, freezing, explosives.
Psychological control.
Charming.
Lack of psychological control.
Yeah.
Penguins.
They're words for each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, manipulation.
Yeah.
Seduction, depending on the.
I mean, I'm not against it. Crowbars.
Poisons and gases.
Evil genius.
Poison,
Nuclear radiation.
Sonic assault.
sonic assault. And how about threats? How are they threatened? How are these things threatening Batman's assets?
Bombs.
Bombs.
All bombs.
It's always bombs.
Guns, kidnapping.
You can say that.
Power.
Extortion / blackmail.
Redirection.
Redirection,
Revealing personal information.
personal information,
Exploding
Exposing
green lights.
exposing it, yeah.
Probably.
Ruining your internal relationship, like when the Joker stole Robin, Batman, and then Robin became an enemy of the Batman. Random episode that was.
Yeah.
The Red Hood. Yeah. Alright, it's a great movie.
Alright, so,
Kidnapping or.
Come on, James, give
or-
a few
Or
examples.
taking over your other assets like Alfred and or your family members.
yep. Alright, and let's, what about protections? What are we gonna do to protect, masks to protect our identity?
The shield.
Batmobile.
Batmobile.
The repel, what's that gun called? The repel gun where you used to be able to jump buildings with it?
Yeah,
Grappling.
Grappling.
Yeah, Grappling.
Grappling gun.
Extra life, hold on.
He's got his little Batman blades.
He's got bats to protect you.
He's got the
oh yeah,
key.
bats.
Yeah.
He got Wade Enterprises, I think, it makes all sorts of defense.
High quality
Alfred.
masks.
Yeah, Alfred's a
Really
protection
good
mechanism.
when you're-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bad quality masks will blow your cover.
Yep.
Radioactive is bomb detection. Because bombs are the threat.
But then he had, what was that whole like sensor thing he set up to find the Joker? He had that whole like
He
audio
had a sensor in
sensor.
his car to notify him that there was a bomb under it.
I think he gets everything from his Wade Enterprises.
Oh, yeah, he mapped out.
He like audio mapped
Yeah, it
Gotham.
was their echolocation.
Echolocation. Oh yeah. It's like a bat. He was like a
No,
bat.
that was the Batman's technology they used to protect the building so you can map out and see where
Autopiloting vehicles.
What's his name?
All right, so let's go. Let's go to Joker. Joker tables. How did you guys decide that you're going to attack Batman?
We decided that, much like people said, Gotham was one of the most important parts of Batman, but Batman can only protect Gotham if Gotham trusts him to protect. So we would go straight for his reputation through the use of machine learning to create deep fakes to put Batman in compromise.
Red state.
So we have videos of him beating up women and old ladies in alleys. We have him, beating the crap out of Robin and kicking dogs, shoplifting.
So we've actually, we could get the same profile of this guy and to counter it, it's pretty, all we could do is charity work, really. Once you get that kind of.
So let's,
I can do way more videos than you can do charity work.
We can add more to machine learning so we can build our own video.
Work it out. Shooting puppies.
We'll make our own charities. We have enough money.
It's more of competing.
Exactly.
Sam?
It's a very powerful platform.
So 80% of that, his actual goal was to pop a shell inside the Bat computer. He changed it the last minute.
Yeah,
So the original plan was that the Batmobile is surely loaded up with all kinds of vulnerable IoT things that he didn't know he got before he put it in there.
That's
We
fair.
inject those, they go back to the Batcave, pivot into the Bat computer, we pop a shell from there, do whatever the hell you want.
Can you come up here and say that for the stream?
Yeah.
I can't repeat that.
At which point there was some machine learning and porn stuff.
Nobody mentioned porn until you.
No, you did. That was half of your
That was a private conversation.
I rest my case.
We can't trust you guys.
Yeah, now you have to change your site handle to Loose Lip Sam.
Which also is a sport name.
Anything from this table?
We also agree that Gotham was probably the easiest, biggest target, and at least my idea was to go fully, very basic kinetic and just level Gotham with a black market nuke.
Black market nuke.
It's not over, and we've seen with everything else, it's over thought, it's over cerebral, where they're just thinking, and then it's like Bond villain-esque type of, I'm going to divulge my entire overly complicated, crazy arch of how this is all going to come together, Rube Goldberg, just blow this shit up.
But how can you be a criminal if there's no city to be a criminal in?
And just, like, sell your nuclear bomb.
We're going to Metropolis after that.
So yeah, it's wiping everyone out, but it's like, it's really more attacking his, that's his identity.
Yeah,
Protecting
Gotham
a
is.
huge part of his identity.
He's got nothing to protect with it. He's no longer that.
I gotta say, we do have a great
What is Batman without Gotham?
He can start a new life because the cops shouldn't be hunting him anymore.
No, he's gonna have to start encouraging
And Commissioner
Superman.
Gordon could totally be
And
like,
Superman ain't gonna like that.
contact you in another way.
So,
What's the
from the
Penguins
Penguins would be
like,
protected.
Superman kills Batman. Game over.
Almost found something died in love, so maybe we can.
That, or we can also destroy the ocean, it's all Aquaman, and just have all that red
all
with
the
Batman logos on it.
That's
Just start an infight.
Someone just go foul.
We went full nerd.
You're old enough to see that.
Is there anything else anyone wants to add for this activity?
Who wants to go up front and present?
No? Everyone got real quiet when you said that.
Yeah. I was like, who wants to go up front and present? And they got real quiet.
Nope.
James does.
I've been in front of them.
And that's my talk.
Just an add-on,